Good afternoon, all. I hope you're really, really well. I'm just straight off a podcast recording, so apologies, I'm a little bit late. But yeah, I wanted to come on and talk a bit about, as scheduled, about labels, the labels that we create for ourselves as part of Mental Health Awareness Week. I want to just come on and share a bit of my thoughts and reflections, I guess, on some of the struggles that I've had experienced in the past. And I should say as well, I'm not a clinical therapist, so take whatever I say with a massive pinch of salt. But yeah, I want to talk about labels, and it was something that was triggered from a meditation I listened to. It's the Calm app. So anyone out there that maybe uses a Calm app or Headspace, I highly recommend either. I'm sure there are others out there as well. But effectively, this meditation spoke about, from a sufferer of ADHD, said something that really supported him was about, he recognized that he was labeling himself as diagnosis. So he had ADHD. A certain part of him was ADHD. And he found through the process of meditation that he was able to separate a little bit from the identity element and recognize ADHD as something that was real and diagnosed that he had, but he was able to hold it with a certain amount of lightness and react to the element of when periods were really high and it was kind of overbearing, and some ways that he treated that. And also just recognizing it wasn't always at that state. So it wasn't always a huge part of him, but it was always there potentially that could come about. And I guess it made me think about some other reflections of identity and labels and how they can have a detrimental effect on us and the way we think, the way we behave and the way we feel. So I also want to just state, in terms of the way we think, I think we have some control over the way we think. We don't have 100% control. There are clinically diagnosed conditions, but we do have some level of control. So positive thinking is not a silver bullet. Neither, I'm sure, I would hope, is any drugs or medication or psychotherapy or community support. There's a combination of different things that will be supportive for people that are suffering with mental health conditions. And I'm talking about clinical, conditions here: depression, anxiety, could be ADHD, anything, I guess, that's suffering your mental state. And something I was just reflecting on, because my kids, I've got a 3 and 4 year old, I've got, are constantly cutting themselves. And sometimes it's the tiniest little cut and they'll say, "Oh, I've got a cut, I need a plaster." Now, of course, the body, anything physical with us, if you get a cut on your finger, the body doesn't, need, sometimes it will need some medication, some support, some stitches, some medication to support. But if there's a cut on the finger, for example, that will heal by itself. We don't need to will our body to repair the tissue from a cut. But when that happens, in our head, we do need some support and some effort to change that. Much in the same way that a cancer patient couldn't will cancer out of their body. They're going to need chemotherapy, radiotherapy, etc., medical support, counselling to manage their mindset, I guess, around that time. So I guess our brains are exact in the same way that we need to, to expect them to fix themselves isn't going to be, something that we should expect. So what can we do? So I wanted to come on and talk about, yes, there's a whole host of, I guess, medication and counselling and psychotherapy support. But I wanted to talk about, likely down at the milder level, in terms of some things that we can do to hold in our space just to support how we feel about certain conditions we may or may not be suffering with. So it's certainly something I can appreciate. I've suffered from anxiety in the past, and certainly had periods where that anxiety has felt overwhelming and periods where it's felt very, very manageable or mild. But it can be really difficult, and the differences are really clear around when we attach a feeling or an emotion to a part of our identity. So this idea that I'm depressed or I'm anxious, holding that as part of our identity can actually reinforce it in a way. and I wouldn't say is particularly beneficial, even if it's been clinically diagnosed. So if I take this example of this guy that had been diagnosed with ADHD, he chose to see that rather than he has ADHD, then he experiences peaks and troughs or periods of ADHD. Yeah, and therefore he's created some distance, even just in the language that he uses, but also through meditation, where he was able to just recognize that he was the owner of his thoughts, but he was aware of the fact that thoughts were running through his head and he was getting overwhelmed by that. And therefore he was able to watch it. He was the watcher of his thoughts in that sense. So creating some form of distance between, I guess, your feeling, and trying to, detach that from actually being part of your identity, because it's part of your identity is very much fixed. So holding some space between that if you can. So I would say use of language and meditation if you can. I use the Calm app, Headspace. There'll be loads out there. You can look on YouTube, but they're fantastic apps that will just help you. You can meditate 5-10 minutes, however long you've got, but it just helps you slow down your mind and help you, I guess, more focus on the thoughts that are kind of running through and detach that a little bit. Another thing that I always think is massively helpful that we can change is exercise. So we can absolutely control it. The amount of exercise, I guess, that we can do. I know certain people won't be able to just get out there and start running a marathon, but exercise in and of itself, it is a distraction. It does, if anyone's ran a marathon or ran any sort of distance, it is really difficult or exercise at any sort of intensity will recognize you struggle to think about other things when you're doing it. So even just giving yourself that break, that, whether it's 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you can, trying to give yourself that bit of a break can act as a bit of a reset. But if not, it's a respite from some of that those overwhelming thoughts. But it's obviously been shown as well, there's a multitude of evidence there about creating endorphins, new neural pathways getting grown as well, reducing inflammation in your brain as well. So it's not only just about, I guess, that respite, it's also just the process of doing that can actually have a positive impact in terms of the chemical goings on, I guess, of your brain. So that's another reason that I would say exercise is just fantastic. And a couple of comments coming in there. I don't know whether they're on Facebook or whether they're on LinkedIn, but yeah, totally agree with exercise. Go get those good endorphins, 100%. And the last one is one which I'll be ashamed to admit that is sleep. And sleep, something that anyone that knows me well will have heard me say, you can sleep when you're dead. And it's probably only something that I've picked up in the last year to really start to focus on the benefit of sleep as a normal pattern, and focusing as an importance on sleep so that I'm prioritizing my own mental health and well-being. So I'm not talking about, I guess, the extreme end. Of course, sleep's going to support you, as I said, but from mild anxiety, managing your day-to-day mindset, getting a right amount of sleep. As a relatively new parent as well, I've got a 3 and 4 year old. It was very difficult when my second came along, and there was periods where I wasn't sleeping, and I recognized the change in my mindset day to day. I was, quicker to anger. I was more irritable. I felt more lethargic, so I didn't get to the gym, and all of these things just compounded. Yeah. So I've watched a few things over the last few years, and I regret to say that it massively changed. It was like a red pill in the Matrix. I was red pilled on the importance of sleep, and now I joke a bit that I'm in bed at 10 every night, proper old man, but that allows me to be able to get a good solid at least 7 hours. And actually, 7 hours should be the minimum that we're looking for. There's a fantastic episode. I should have wrote the episode down, but Joe Rogan podcast, one of the most famous podcasts out there. Joe Rogan did an episode. If you type Joe Rogan and sleep, importance of sleep, he spoke to some scientist God, I don't know what, however long ago, but maybe last year, a couple of years ago. And this episode is just filled with scientific, I guess, experience and expertise, I guess, on the importance of sleep and the damage that it does to you. So what I've taken from it is you get any less than 7 hours, what your body needs at 7 hours is it will do the bulk of stuff at deep sleep. Yeah, you need to have a minimum of 7 hours so that you can get rid of all the shit that's in your head. Yeah, and you need that 7 hours period, or else your brain's never getting cleaned out from the waste product. So you can imagine, when you get a cut and you get dirt into your veins, your body's got a lymphatic system that excretes the damage it does to you automatically. You don't need to tell your body to do that. Well, your sleep does this for you automatically as well. You don't need to tell your body to do it, but you do need to make sure you give yourself at least 7 hours sleep. And actually, there's a load of science there about how damage it will have, not just on your health and mindset in the day-to-day, but the links to Alzheimer's and degenerative brain disease later in your life. So the longer you go through periods with not prioritizing 7 hours worth of sleep, maybe you want to hustle or grind or work hard, the longer you go and do that for, and I was guilty, the longer you do that for, the more you're actually damaging your long-term brain health. So maybe a slight detraction from your in-the-moment mental health that we're talking about just now, but certainly something to wake you up and say, right, I should be getting at least 7 hours sleep. Now, that might not be always so easy. You could say, listen, I want to sleep, but I keep waking up. I can only sleep for 2 hours, 3 hours, or whatever. So I guess some things that I've tried that have helped me. I have one of the main things is a digital sunset. So I get to about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, apart from the nights where I'll maybe be doing live or watching webinars or presenting on webinars, I will have a digital sunset. No devices after 8 o'clock and no TV, not watching that, and just allowing my brain to just settle in and slow down a little bit. And the impact, I guess, that has is it's not, naturally, I guess, it's not this light that's coming from the TV. It's allowing me to just naturally blend into a period of rest and allows me kind of almost preparing me for sleep. Like saying there, I find it difficult to sleep more than 6 hours. I seem to be getting deep sleep for 5. Yeah, and listen, it's a difficult one. It's not something for me. I think I had about 2 bouts of 3 hours sleep last night. So I'm on here talking about the importance of prioritizing it. I had both my kids in the bed last night, and then one came through and joined me on the couch later on. Listen, it's difficult. So it's trying to find enough things that work for you. So I would say certainly what's worked for me, try a digital sunset, a period of time at night where you go, right, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not looking at the TV, I'm switching off. Meditating as well. So meditating has been a game changer for me. We actually ran in my Purpose to Progress group, we ran a monthly challenge of meditating every day. And one of the guys just kept falling asleep. He kept meditating at night and falling asleep. But that was part of the reason why I wanted to meditate, so that he could switch off at night. So that's not the only benefit from meditation, but as a means to an end, it's a fantastic in terms of just slowing the mind down, creating that separation, as I mentioned earlier, creating the separation between your thoughts and who you are as a person, and being able to be the watcher of your thoughts is just so important. But definitely slowing down your brain, getting it ready for sleep. There's products out there, supplements, CBD oils, that I know people find really helpful. Natural supplements that can kind of help relax you before you get into bed. Personally, I've never tried them, but again, it could be something that you could look at. And reading. So it sounds really, really simple. Go to bed with a book. Usually after about 3 or 4 pages, my head needs to go and hit the pillow. I physically feel tired. But one of the other things that I mentioned from exercise, if you exercise, you will be able to, it will help you sleep better as well. So yeah, just thinking about that. So reading, meditation, just the recognition, I guess, that the importance of that 7 hours, like it can probably be, I'm not understated, but what I took from it is probably be one of the most important ways that you can look after your brain health and your I guess your brain for later on in life is get 7 hours sleep and prioritize that. Figure out a way how you can do that. And yeah, if you're struggling like Aklak is saying there, can't sleep more than 6 hours. I think there's going to be specialists out there that can support you in terms of sleeping more. I guess like if I was in that position, once my head hits the pillow, unless I'm woken up by my kids or the dog, more often than not, then I can usually get that at least that 7 hours. But I think it's not undermining the importance of that for any long period of time as well. So it will impact you in the short term, but actually, if you're looking at something that you can really benefit your health in later life, sleep's probably one of the best things that you could do. So I'll drop, when I come off of this, I'll drop in the comments the episode. I'll put a link from the YouTube episode that I mentioned from Joe Rogan. And we'll see if it's still available, actually, because he's sold his soul to Spotify. So I don't know whether that episode will still be available of his podcast, but I'll try and find the link and I'll post it there. And I would very much, anyone that hasn't looked into the impact of sleep on, I guess, your mental health, your mindset, how you feel day to day, and your brain health, I would really recommend it. So listen, that was it. That was all I wanted to come on and talk about. Yeah, hopefully it's been helpful. I'm trying to be on every day this week just to talk about some experience that I've had through that and some reflections from my point of view. So hopefully you found them useful, and I will speak to you again tomorrow. But have a fantastic day, and remember, listen, reach out if you're sitting there, standing there, however you're listening to this. If you're hearing something that you're going like, I'm struggling with that, or things are difficult, there's people out there that will be able to help. So just do not suffer in silence. Every single one of us has got so much worth in this world. So reaching out to people, I always come from the mindset that everyone's here. The vast majority of us are here to help others. So yeah, there will be help when we're asked, or when we ask. So take care, have a fantastic day, and I will speak to you all very soon.